Right. I mentioned that I'm an AWS Community Builder. So I'm here today with my AWS Community Builder hat on.
No, you're not. You do actually get a hat.
You do? Oh, no! You're right. I do actually get a hat, Carl, and I'm standing here without my hat on.
Oh, they haven't shipped it.
Oh, actually, my son has nicked that hat.
It's a very nice hat.
It is. Who here is not familiar with the AWS Community Builders program? Because I'm going to do a little plug for it. Nice. Carl here was the one who encouraged me to apply in the first place, actually, which was a year ago. So the AWS Community Builders program, as you can see, it gives you a host of lots of different things from exams, certifications, and vouchers. But the great thing about it is a community. You apply, a certain number of people get in, and it's targeted for anyone who's 18 years, and it really varies in terms of their career background. You have people like Neil Davis from Digital Cloud Training. If anyone's done any of his training stuff, he's, I've looked to him, a bit of a fan person about him. And other people like Tutorial Dojo and John Bonzo, they're AWS Community Builders. But you've also got other people like myself and Carl, who does stuff around the community, doing talks, encouraging people, and also people who are new to cloud. I have friends who are just about to start their careers in cloud computing and have gone through things like the AWS Academy and on the verge, and they apply. They talk about their journeys and what they want to achieve. And with the resources and the tech communities that the AWS Community Builders program, they got in, and they're able to benefit from that. So great things. You get to hear about AWS products and teams. Sometimes you have to sign NDAs as well, because you can't talk about certain bits and pieces. You get to learn from lots of different subject matter experts. There's certain categories that you fall under, from like dev tools and data. I fall underneath cloud operations. Promotional credits, helpful resources, things like access to Cloud Academy for training and development. And there's lots of opportunities to connect and learn and grow and be in a great community with like-minded people. This
discounted re:Invent tickets.
Discounted re:Invent tickets is always a good one.
Not guaranteed, right?
No, but for people who are new early in their careers with computing, you can actually apply for the AWS. There's a grant. I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to look up and put a link on the chat. But there's like a new builders grant, because one of my mentees from the AWS Academy, she got in, all expenses paid to re:Invent. You apply, you can't, you got to be within a set, I think it was like 3 years or something like that. But sometimes it's just having that courage or that annoying mentor who goes, have you applied yet? Have you applied yet? My current thing to her, and shout out to Marie, is have you done your blog post about it? But yeah, if you're interested in joining, want to find out more, I've added a little QR code on the left. And in that video, you have the very embarrassing little snippets of me in the video as well. But there's a wait list. Please do consider applying. It doesn't matter where you are on the journey. It's about what you put into that 1,000-word application that you put in.
Well, let me. I've got about 10 words. Was it, please?
Maybe that was part of the criteria. You said less. Well done. Right. Oh, yeah, of course. You can take the QR code. Otherwise, we can do separate links. Yeah. Okay. In the interest of being cloud agnostic, I'm going to add information about MVP program. So this is from Microsoft. This is similar to AWS Heroes. So you've got community builders, and then you've got APN ambassadors. One day, that's where I want to go. And then you've also got AWS Heroes. So the MVP program is nomination only by someone who works at Microsoft or another MVP. So you've got that program as well. Google. I have added Google just for you, Lacey. And I'm going to shout out something else as well. You've got Google Developer Experts programs that everyone can apply to. Right now, though, applications just opened up for Women Tech Makers by Google. Yeah, do you? Yeah. So have a think about applying if that's something you're interested in as well. A little nod just in terms of the British Computer Society, or what was formerly known as the British Computer Society, is now letters, so BCS. I'm just so old, I can't not say the whole thing. They've got a fellowship program as well. So all those type of things, I kind of fit in the same brackets, but lots of opportunities to get involved in lots of different cloud communities. Right, in today's talk, we'll be navigating our way through Amazon Web Services, Azure, Google Cloud, and I'm going to do a little mention just now, it's not in my talk, that there are other different certification pathways. A lot of the lessons that I'm going to talk about, they're ones that you can potentially apply or laugh at my terrible stories of how I did things wrong. But you've also got great ones by the British Computer Society and more cloud agnostic ones such as a CompTIA that we've got available. Little disclaimer time. I am not a trainer. I am not an instructor. I am just someone who has helped people and been there myself. So take what from the lessons I've learned or anything like that, take that from that what you will and apply it if it's applicable to where you are. Right, you know this slides. Everyone familiar with this? You're going to see 3 of these. So this slide here talks about the AWS world in terms of certifications. So if we start at the bottom here, you've got the foundational certification. It's cloud practitioner. The key thing with a cloud practitioner is the fact that it's a broad level qualification. It goes through lots of different services and products from that. I know for a lot of companies, you also get people from the sales and marketing teams as well as technical to also undergo that, just so they have a deeper understanding of the different products and services which they hold. With these certifications, so the cloud practitioner and the solutions architect associate, the key thing is it's breadth. It's about all different areas of the AWS landscape, not necessarily just the ones that you work with on a day-to-day basis. So I currently hold those 2. You then go into, from the foundational level, you then go into associate level, which is really interesting. They say 1 year's worth of experience, but it really does depend on your background. And if you're looking at getting these certifications as you pivot towards cloud for the first time. I know a lot of people who haven't had a first cloud role who hold professional level, for example. With these certifications with AWS, what they did, I think it was in 2021, is they didn't have any ties. So in the Azure side of things, in order to achieve a certain level, you've got to have there's a prerequisite of holding different certifications. AWS, there isn't. If you want to, you can go straight to pro from that aspect. From me, I always like to look at this cloud practitioner exam as I'm going to call it a confidence booster, especially if you're already in tech, you're already working in the world of cloud. The great thing about having this as a confidence booster is if it's been a while since you've sat an exam, you're just not used to how to do an exam proctored online with your webcam on and all that bits and pieces. It gives you that ability to do that. Currently, you get a 50% off voucher when you pass an AWS exam. So if you did that and that was your end goal, you're technically getting that for free because you get the voucher to get you 50% off the next time. A little top tip for myself. Also, in terms of recertifying, every 3 years for these ones. If you're looking at certifying to professional level, you will certify the one below, so you don't have to resit that exam, but it is resitting that exam. Oh, there's a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a new disclosure on the Microsoft trainer. Actually, you can, if Microsoft structure is very similar, and you can take any level. You don't have to work through foundations. So in that regard, it's the same.
Oh, yeah, I was just more talking in terms of the expert level. It's only because I was looking into that worse, but you are right. You can go straight to associates in different aspects. Oh.
Stop you. I mean, they would advise, obviously, but they recognise there are people who've got years of experience and just want to take the exam that's the right level.
Oh, give me a shout because I tried to do I'll show you which one. I got told I needed 2. Hi.
I also have a question.
Yes.
You said that if you get the professional level and you have the associate level, you have to recertify the professional level. What if you just jump to the professional level? If I just take that, do I count as having sysops administrator and developer as an example? If I take DevOps engineer directly?
Yeah. Would you like to-
No, so I have to certify all of them the first time and then only have to re-up the highest one.
That I'll have to have a look into because that side of things is slightly different. But I think it's more the fact that it's from the professional track because there are direct correlations from here.
So I did actually look into this to prove the point.
Yeah. I don't think it would. Yeah, here.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you very much. Get everyone mic'd up, eh?
So yeah, to prove a point to my boss, because I'm like that, I checked this. So within the various tracks, it certifies every certificate below it, but you do have to have passed it beforehand. So if you do straight to solutions architect professional, you will not hold the practitioner or the associate, and it won't just automatically grant you them. But if you've passed the other two beforehand, then they'll recertify on the same date, which admittedly makes sense. The specialty ones will recertify the practitioner exam, but none of the others.
What was your point? The cloud practitioner expired. Yeah, I did think it did,
Yeah.
Because it hadn't. I was like,
It's having those pathway links, which is quite important from that aspect. I'm going to have a look at my little notes, but just a couple of things in terms of AWS. I've mentioned that you've got the AWS Cloud Up for Her program, which will give free training for anyone who identifies as a woman, and potentially a 50% off voucher towards CCP and Solutions Architect Associate certifications. AWS also run lots of different incentives and programs. So for example, at the moment, there is a special offer in regards to AWS Professional. So at the moment, if you sign on to the Professional Challenge, you can look at getting a 50% off exam voucher for that if you sign up. Other things to bear in mind is that there are some great offers on at the moment. So for anyone who is hesitating about taking any AWS exam, I have an offer for you from AWS. If you sign up and book your exam and take it between now and I'm going to look this up. So it's March the 15th. So that was in the past, up the way to from then, from March the 15th to May the 31st. If you book your exam and if for any reason you do not pass on your first attempt, you got to use a promo code, but then they will give you a free retake on your second time. You got to take it though before August the 1st. If there are any ums and nahs and wondering, free retakes, but don't forget to use a promo code as a key thing for that. So that's a useful link from that aspect. Right, let's dive into Azure. So with the Microsoft Azure landscape, I currently hold to associate level. I'm looking to get towards that solutions. That associate level and looking towards getting that solutions architect expert. I understand that all the other ones, you can go straight to those different associate levels from that aspect. But when I was looking into it and when I tried to go towards getting that expert status, I needed to have a precursor to have that associate. That was the AZ 104 and that is the AZ 305. Together, that gives me a different status for it, but it's only within that that DevOps engineer space and the solutions architect. Everything else is completely, as you said, in terms of able to go towards the associate level. Similar thing in terms of the Azure fundamentals, in terms of the fact that it's kind of the same level as the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. If anyone already has the Certified Cloud Practitioner under the belt, I tend to recommend, at least for my team, to go through the AZ fundamentals. There's so much crossover. It's literally just a couple hours and you can go for the AZ 900. Currently, when I last looked a month ago, Microsoft had a great offer at the moment with their fundamentals qualifications. If you go into Azure Virtual Learning, and I'll find the link and put it out there. And you sit their virtual learning sessions where they train. It's on a set timetable and program. I was able to get my AZ 900 fundamentals qualification because I'd sat it, and I got sent a free voucher. You got to attend though, they won't just send you a free voucher, but they had that as an offer which they had for all the fundamentals one. But you got to sit the virtual sessions for the fundamentals. So that's a really great one. I've got friends who've got, at least 4 different ones: data, AI, security, and the fundamentals as well. So that's an interesting one to have a look at. Right. GCP. This is uncharted territory for me, but I thought in the interest of fairness and cloud agnostic and different technologies, it would be really interesting to have a look at. I have to admit, I am curious.
They've got the nicest looking badges.
Do they? The nicest looking badges. I'd go for that.
You get so much shirt.
Do they physically send out badges? Oh, I was like, I can imagine that on like a bomber jacket or like a leather one. We should.
Here without like AWS and Microsoft.
Oh. I can't wait. That'd be great. Yeah, so I had to write notes in regards to GCP because I'm not that familiar with it. Okay, so with Azure, one thing I was going to say is the fact that for associate level ones, let's go back. It's every year, but it's different from AWS world because it's not sitting the full exam again. It's not proctored exam, so that you have to do based on any new changes. So yearly for Azure, but it's not the full exam proctored online. So for me personally, that's a big plus because having done all those exams, the key thing that I'm looking at is what's Czarina in the future going to have to be doing in order to maintain this. I feel like the Azure landscape is quite maintainable from that aspect, and it keeps you up to date with current technologies and stuff.
Do you have to pay for the yearly exams?
Sorry.
Do you have to pay for
The renewal, no, it's
Yeah.
free. It's free. I mean, what I was going to add there is also open book.
Yeah.
You click on the search.
I wondered. So what we have is a Microsoft trainer saying that it's an open book exam. I wonder whether I can say that because I say the word not proctored, and that's like wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I mean, to be fair to them, they're wise to that simple
Yeah.
question. You wouldn't really know what to search for unless you understood the context. And actually, they're not. But obviously, all these guys, they want us to be up to date.
Yeah.
They want us to be keeping at the cutting edge. So it's not too onerous. I think one in the four.
Nice. Okay. I think that's a thing.
Bing search there.
Bing search. As opposed to Google search. Oh, I think I owe you a drink for that joke. That's made me smile. Okay. So with GCP, it is 2 years from the date of certification, unless it specifies otherwise. There is ways of getting through that certification platform at the moment. So I'm going to talk about the 2023 Get Certified Learning Program. So there is a set of commitments and virtual learning sessions, full day ones that you have to commit to. But if you sign on to that program, what they have is training, a community, because you're in certain cohorts, and free exam vouchers. There are a limited number available, and it's on a first come, first served basis. But that's something that's going on right now if people are interested, and you declare what pathway you want to go into.
send out a link later as well? We basically have to commit to being available around May time for one-day learning. But it's a very good learning exercise, and you also get some data access to code labs.
Fantastic, thank you. Right, tips for taking an exam. Right, I'm gonna do a little hands up thing for those people in the room. How many people hold one of those cloud certs?
How helpful.
Nice. I'm going to burn the image of who put their hand up, because at the end of the session, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A, and you're going to tell me what lessons you have learned from that aspect. It'll be interesting to find out everyone else's exam tips. when looking at taking an exam, but these are my key ones. Okay. The first one is the clock, and it stands for many, many, many different things. Time, and thinking about how you even want to do the exam. One of the things that lots of companies have moved to is having exams. So, for example, I think the CISA exam, which I did, which was ISACA, in the past, they didn't have virtual opportunities to do exams. It wasn't this online project from home, but where obviously things locked down, they then moved towards that type of learning. So there's two different ways you can look at taking an exam. It's going to a test center or taking exams from home, proctored online. Who here prefers the proctored online route? Exam center, everyone else? Wow, I'm a lone person in there. Yeah.
What do you mean by proctored online? I get the concept that you sit on a Zoom call or whatever, but
I'll explain it. It's having a look. So when I talk about time, one of the reasons why I've got that up is really making sure you have enough time to prepare. So, going to a test center, you know how to look at bus timetables and all that bits and pieces. I do like having exams, especially the 4-hour-long ones, in a test center, because you can take breaks. You can, use the restroom and things like that. Whereas if you're doing it proctored online, you cannot leave the Zoom space, which is an interesting one. I've never done that for a 4-hour exam. Time still ticks on is a key thing. So it doesn't stop, but you can.
Can you use a shoe ring?
You can use anything you want to, Carl. Yeah. So, darn it. That's in my head now. Okay. Proctored online. So proctored online, there's a couple of things I would look at recommending. One is to make sure you do all the systems checks. So this is where you're taking your exam from the comfort of your own home or your own, office environment that doesn't have people walking past or anything like that. There's a couple of things. You got a system check to make sure that you've got in. But one thing I found is that a lot of work laptops will have set restrictions in. So, for example, certain laptops I use, I cannot get through the security tests because anyone can remote onto my desktop and do my exam for me. So run that checks. You'll be given a link and check that when you're looking at what laptop you're going to be using or PC on that day, and to please bear that in mind. When you're doing a proctored for home exam, there's a couple of things. You've got to have a webcam, and you've got to be able to do certain things like have your mic open. So when I say mic open, it's just you can't use a headset or a microphone. They want to hear the whole environment in case there's someone behind the desk shouting out and whispering up the answers for you. Other things also apply. So different exams do different things, but most of them get you to take pictures of all around the room. So for someone who's new to taking exams at home, obviously having a look at all this SEPMAN guidance is just being aware of it. It's easy once you know, but if you didn't know, it's quite difficult because you're sitting there going, I'm ready to take an exam. Oh, hang on, you want me to get my mobile phone that I put away? So you take pictures around, take pictures of yourself, and then you sign on to the exam, and then you have to then get your webcam and show the room again to confirm that it's the same, and that includes your desk and what's behind you as well. A couple key tips is they don't want you to have second monitors at all, so just disconnect that. If you have mountain TVs, I just put a blanket over them. Anything with a screen they don't want to see, including mirrors as well. So I covered my whole room full of blankets. That makes it easier because then I just don't need to tidy as well. From that aspect. So think about how you want to do the exam. It sounds a lot, but I actually prefer to take it. It's just a lot easier. I don't have to worry about how and when the test center, but everyone can pick whichever way they want, but just being aware that there is a couple little bit more extra setup steps if you're looking at taking it at home. You have more timings as well. So I am a 10 p.m. examiner, And the reason why I'm a 10 a.m. examiner, this should give me my lessons I learned, is because my children are asleep in bed. I almost got kicked out of an exam because at I think 8 p.m., my son tried to come into the room. The examiner saw the door slightly open and a child cry. And I had to stay there in front of my camera screen, looking down at the camera lens, shouting to the other half, going, do not say anything, but you need to get the child, staring at the examiner because I cannot go outside of that exam zone. He did come and get the child. Luckily, we still had the baby gate, but they saw the door open irrespective of that. The examiner was lovely, and because I stayed in there, was absolutely fine. But if that 3-year-old whispered, something, S3 buckets, I would have been scuppered. Or impressed, to be fair. I think I've been more impressed from that aspect. But yeah, think about how you want to take the exam. Another thing that clock represents in terms of tips is plan how you want to spend your time. Different exams do different things. So for example, if you've got 65 questions and you have something like 2 hours, you can kind of work out whether or not you're on track to where you want to go, and whether or not you want to build in review time at the end to have a look at any questions which you've flagged up saying, I'm not sure, I'm going to look at that later on. So with some quick maths, you can work out how much time you got for questions from that aspect. Other things I found in the Azure, the AZ 104 exam, was the fact that it was split up differently. So you have things like a big case study to do, which can appear at any point during the exam. I was quite lucky. I had it at the beginning, and it was, for me, the hardest bit. And I knew that it was coming. But the key thing with something like the AZ 104 was the fact that there are certain aspects that you cannot go back to if it's section-based. If you have those scenario questions or the case study, they will have you be able to review that side only. So have a look at how much time you need in order to have a look at that section is really important when you're looking at planning out that. Yeah, the next one is that's going to be looking at the exam guide, so the written guidance. I've got an example of one later on, but that is one of my top tips for his exams. Every supplier has an exam guidance section. Shall I have a quick view? This is AWS's one. You're going to get lots of information, and reading this as you go through that certification pathway is really useful. So for example, you'll see here, and one of the tips I'll mention later on is the fact that you have unscored questions. That's a common thing across lots of different providers. In this exam, you've got 15 unscored questions that do not affect your score. So whenever I get a hard question, I like to think, you know what? That's going to be one of the ones that unscored. Park it, move on, and still maintain that good mindset going, that doesn't count. That was just an unscored question, surely. Other things that are really useful to know is the fact that you can request and look at getting exam accommodations. So for different providers, it does vary, so have a look, but you need to request this in a different way, as opposed to just booking the exam online. So if English isn't your first language, or there's other accommodations. So for example, if you need more time to read different bits and pieces, you apply and you request that, and you can potentially get additional time for that. But it's just knowing, and that information is normally in that exam guidance. Other key things that I really like inside this AWS one in particular is the appendix side of things. You get inside the exam guidance all the things that they want you to know, because they want you to succeed. They're going to give you the information, obviously not the full amount. So one of the top tips that I give for the AWS ones is that appendix section at the back. Looking at all those different AWS services and features by, I'm going to call them family categories. So for example, analytics, you've got Amazon Athena, data exchange and data pipeline, and EMR. You get to see all the different things that they want you to know. So as I'm learning, I go through and I tick it off. I need to be able to answer in my own head information about what that is and why it's different within that category family from there. That's where sometimes if you're looking at different resources, and there are lots of different resources available, whether you're looking at AWS Skill Builder or you're looking at external things from like people like Digital Cloud Training and Neil Davis, or Tutorial Dojo and John Bonzo, and lots of different providers as well. You know, it's making sure that they've spoken about that, or if they haven't, because they cannot cover every single thing necessarily. It's making sure that you've at least, you know, got enough information to give you the chances, every chances of success. Yeah, so exam guidance. The question mark there is in regards to those unscored questions. On the left-hand side, what you've got is 3 different categories. I like to look at the exam, and I put each question into 3 different categories. So it's first looking at it in terms of, do I know it? Yes. If it's a question where I stare at it and I go, I'm not going to get it. I've read it. I need to move on and not waste time. I did that in my AWS Associate Solutions Architect. The first 5 questions, it was not fun, is what I'm going to point out. I sat there going, whoa. And I spent way too long looking at those questions. And, you know, I ended up skipping it. And then the rest of it was a lot more accessible and easy compared to those ones. But I wasted probably 10 more minutes than I probably should have just staring at those questions. If I'm not going to get it, what you can do is review it to flag later on. Or if it's something you're not going to get in the first place, put something down and continue on. It's reserving your own, you know, energy and headspace to continue on with the rest of the exam, especially when you get stumped with a difficult one, like me in the AZ-104 case study, being the first one, or, you know, getting those big, long, difficult questions from that aspect. Yeah. Okay, so before we go on to the quotes and the lessons that I've learned, which is the last part of the talk, I just want to point out just the difference between buying things on Udemy versus direct. Who here tends to buy things on Udemy in terms of resources, or do you? Yeah. And then direct with different providers, if you do even pay, because the providers do provide free learning platforms. Okay. Now, this isn't the case for every single thing, but it'd be worth looking into. So I get things on Udemy. So I've mentioned the different providers that I use. And the main reason why I get things on Udemy is because it gives me access to practice exams on my phone because it has an app. And that's great for on the go because I like learning whilst I'm waiting for a bus or anything like that. However, I also sometimes like getting things direct with the provider because if you're looking at things like mock exams and practice papers and things like that, you've got potentially additional extra features. So for example, for the ones that I use on Udemy for practice papers, you just get a full set of, you know, practice exams, the whole thing, 65 questions and maybe 5 or 6 of them. And then you get review mode afterwards. When I buy direct, I can do things like section-based, domain-based, and I can review as I go along. So do have a look. Some providers on Udemy will give you access to limited or full range different bits, but you will probably see a lot of providers have things direct and online, and it's choosing whichever one is the same. Oh, sorry, not the same, whichever one works for you and how you want to learn from that aspect. Okay, lesson number 1. Yeah, this is me. Okay, persistent without insight will lead to the same outcome, the book of Boba Fett. This is in regards to looking at your own different learning styles. So when you're looking at learning and, you know, looking at information, especially towards exams, it's understanding what works for you. Something that works for other people is not necessarily going to be the same. For me, I am one of those people who has to write. So I see you with the notes. I write notes down, and the physical act of writing things down is how I remember. I also code it in a separate, different color-coded fashion and do a certain number of underlines and all that stuff. And I enjoy something called a book. Do you remember them? Tangible physical books. I know. What is that? Paper. I know. Yeah, obviously books are, it's bearing in mind the fact that if you're looking at anything like that, you got to have a look at when it was written. It's going to be good for the foundational information, but all the new products and services aren't going to be in exam study guide, which was, published in 2019. So do bear things like that in mind. But there's lots of different learning styles. Are people aware? I think there are 7 that I wrote down. Do you want to shout out some? Do you know some?
Didn't that get defunct?
It did. Well, different. Well, when I'm saying about learning styles, I'm talking about things like, are you a video watcher? Who here, video watcher, note taker?
Certain things I think it is helpful, but I'm better at visually learning.
Yeah.
And lots of text. I can't bother, basically.
No, that's fine. So we've got a visual style learner. Yeah, lots of text is different. Everything works in different ways, and it's understanding what works for you. I spent a lot of my time, because everything was about videos, looking at videos and going through. Whereas for me, doing that book thing was going to be best value, and then cementing my knowledge through doing hands-on practical things, actually getting inside the console and building things, and then watching the video to go, yeah, I know that. That's how I learn. And it's really important to kind of understand how you best learn to make sure you're getting the most value for your time.
You hate videos. I'm the opposite. I hate videos. I watch a video and I literally have 15 minutes of someone going blah 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 blah. And yeah, give me a massive block of text.
Yeah.
I'll read
I love a white paper. Give me a white paper any day of the week. Yeah. So in terms of the different learning styles, obviously have a look, but then you've got things like visual, kinesthetic, oral, social, solitary, verbal, and logical. I think for me as well, one of the things that I like doing is that social learning experience. So for example, going through mock exams together as a group, I get to pretend that I'm a quiz show host, which I quite like, despite not being a big fan of public speaking. But, game show host, asking questions to a group and everyone talking about it. Why is this the answer? What would you then put in? And then locking the answers in, closing your eyes and pressing that check in. That for me is great because I will remember the conversations that we had, the reasons why, and it gets you to articulate that than just being on your own. But everyone learns in different ways, and it's worth exploring that. I think this might be the only last sci-fi quote, I promise. I also do a talk, which is always pass on what you've learned. And I had a whole talk at the DTH was structured around do not. This one is, if the only tool is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. The Law of the Instrument by Maslow's hammer. The over-reliance on a particular thing really is a key thing to take from this one. We've spoken a little bit about if we were reliant on reading books or anything like that, it's only going to give you a limited amount of knowledge. So it's looking at the breadth. Lots of different providers have Twitch. They have podcasts. There are lots of different ways to get involved. I've mentioned white papers already, getting hands-on, building within sandbox environments and within your own console, and using all that, but understanding your true learning style, because there's only going to be so much you can get from reading a book or watching a video course and watching someone else do different things. So explore the different things. In AWS, they have a great Cloud Quest game. So it's really interactive. It's like a role-playing gamification thing. It's free on Skill Builder up until the CCP level, and it's been designed in order to have different ways of learning. There's lots of different things available as well. Okay, I did do one more slightly geeky quote. I'm so sorry. It is Brighton. Come on. With great power comes great responsibility. Uncle Ben, Spider-Man. Yeah.
That's when you actually things.
The key thing with this is if you're going to get hands-on, don't do what I do, which is rack up a bill in GCP as well. Luckily I was given I think when you sign up to account, you were given like $300 free credits. But bearing in mind I knew Azure and AWS, I was a little bit gung-ho and thought I configured things without looking at guide. It turns out I configured my alerts and alarms to tell me when I was being billed, not when my credits were dropping. So after doing a personal project and putting up lots of K8 clusters and all that stuff across AWS and GCP, just for a bit of fun, several months later, I get this, oh, you owe 68 pence. And I was like, oh, it's okay. I've got 300 free credits. I'll be fine. Next month, you owe 68 pounds. Well, dollars probably or something like that. And I was like, I probably should sign in. I then did sign in just in case, because I was like, I probably should take that down because I might want to use up these free promotional credits that I got on something else, a different project. And no, I sapped that up because I left all my stuff on for a very long time. So great power comes great responsibility. You can get hands-on, but if you want, or if you're new, those sandbox lab environments might be a good way to go. But follow the guide to set up the billings, alerts, and alarms, because yeah, it could have been a lot worse. And I've heard a lot worse stories than what I had go around.
So can you just explain it on why can you just send for specific examples?
Oh, these are just general lessons when you're looking at learning. So the credits thing, it's if you're looking at learning towards AWS, what people can do is they can go inside their account and build things. So for example, you've got AWS workshops, which is a great link that we'll add onto the stuff. And they have, you know, what to do and what to build. And if you follow guides like that and you get hands-on, that's in your own live account. So you've got to be really careful and make sure that if you're following a tutorial online, that you take things down when they tell you to take things down, and not end up charging yourself things for things that you've left up. So this is just if you're getting hands-on inside your own console. I would always recommend, this is a great learning experience. If you're creating your own account, set that up at the beginning, alerts and alarms for when you are getting charged. You can even get ones that will forecast. So if you know, yes, limits and alerts and stuff like that, but your card is in there.
Do it in the work account.
Oh, no, that's worse.
There is a trick to do as well. So you go after those days and
Do you want to? Yeah. I'm not sure.
There's a trick with GCP that once you sign up and get your free credits, you remove your card details and then you can't get charged once you're going over and they won't let you spend any money.
Does that work
So-
in production?
Yeah. I have seen people remove their billing accounts.
Thank you for that. That's a good one. Yeah. So I told you, if you already know all this stuff, or even if you're not looking at doing any certifications, you leave today with great stories about all the things that I did wrong. Okay, lesson number 4, and we only have 6 lessons, so we're coming to the end. It's a journey, not a race. I say this time and time again, especially from someone who's come through and retrained through an AWS Academy when you're in a cohort of like 30 odd people. But looking at the cloud certifications or anything like that, it's not about passing for me, and it's not something I would ever recommend. It's not about passing the exam as quickly as possible. It's about the learning experience and putting in the groundwork, putting the time in, exploring, and, you know, doing all that bits and pieces. It's really difficult sometimes not to compare yourself to other people, especially on LinkedIn. You have those people, and I appreciate I am one of them. I appreciate I am one of them. But I'm going to tell you the fact that I find it quite difficult. I follow certain tags on LinkedIn, like AWS certifications. And from my own headspace, you see everyone doing things. It makes you feel like that is big. Yeah. Oh, the gold jacket people. Oh, that looks amazing. But that is a lot of work, to be fair.
Context for people that don't know. If you pass-
Oh, here.
No,
Context for people that don't know: if you pass all the AWS exams, you get this most disgusting gold jacket.
You have to hold them all simultaneously. So
Yeah,
in that regard, it is a bit of a race.
Would you like my phone as well?
It's like Elvis. Elvis has left the microphone.
Here we go, Carl.
I'll say it again. You have to hold all the AWS certifications simultaneously to qualify for the gold lame jacket. So it is a bit of a race because you've got to get all of them before the first ones expire.
Let's get cracking then, Carl.
Yeah. No, many.
How many are there?
How many are they? I thought there was like 13 or something like that. I'm not sure. We can go back, but I think everyone's eyes don't want to do it. Ah, good point. And no doubt they'll have more. But also with that, it's not an automatic thing, because I've got people that I know who've wanted it and expecting it to come through the post. You got to be in the know. And then, yeah, it's a bit more complicated than just doing that. But I know a lot of people aspire to have that. Yeah, well.
And a job.
Yeah. 3 years, got to get everything in 3 years. That's an interesting thing. Okay, especially with those specialities.
Take it back if they ever lapse.
Simon's asking if they take it back if they ever lapse. You get demoted to a silver? I'm joking, I don't know. Yeah, lots of different things. It is hard not to compare, and it's really difficult. But the key thing is everyone goes at their own different times, and looks at that. Training and certifications is not about starting at the same time and ending at the same time. Sometimes it's nice to do it as a group, but people have things like, as he pointed out, lives, which nicely fits into the next one. Lesson number 5. I did do one more sci-fi quote. Sorry, it was my son as well. Bring balance to the force. Do not leave it in darkness. Balance. It's that work-life balance, really. It was tenuous links to quotes I thought would at least provoke some interest. Yeah. A lot of people that I speak to when they're looking towards things, they go, you know what, I need to do this amount of hours every single day or every other day or whatever. And that's how they plan it. One of the things that I learned is that didn't work for me. I actually do the reverse now. I plan my work, because that's important, as Carl pointed out. Plan my work. I plan in my extracurriculars, things that are important to me. So, for example, cloud groups like this one, and also other, social activities, things with my kids, and I put those in. And then I look at the spaces in between my diary, and then have a look, right, that's when I'm potentially going to be able to look towards training and different bits and pieces. The key thing for me, it's the fact that it's got to be consistent. Consistency is key for me, because having 2 months between starting something and not touching it makes it so much harder in order to go back if you're not using it day to day or your work environment, from that aspect. But yeah, it's that having that balance and having that headspace from that aspect. A little tip from myself. Obviously, we live in a technological age. You can use things like RevNote and Anki, lots of different ways to create your own flashcards and learning experiences. But one of the things that I really like is this Forest app. This app tells me off if I touch my phone and I'm meant to be studying. And essentially, the concept of this is that you can have a look at your study time, but you can see. You plant a little tree and you put in how long you want to study. I have it based on the different things that I do. And then I put in, half an hour. I spent half an hour on AZ 104. And you can see how half an hour here or there adds up. And you build a forest and you can look back. Like, I can tell you exactly how long it took me to do certain exams of focus time, because this is sitting down focus, doesn't include breaks and stuff like that, based on what I've put in here. But it also tells me not to go off and decide to make a cup of tea in between any dedicated sessions. So that's a good link. I've spoken about consistency. These are its 2 friends for the last lessons that I've learned: resilience and perseverance. With exams, you get those people who passed straight away all the time, never failed one. And that's absolutely great. Obviously, everyone's into different things. Sometimes the bravest thing someone can do is to go for it, and to go for that exam. It's one of those things, you've got this concept of fear of failure. A lot of people won't go to something until they are 100% there. And that's good and great, but do not ever let that concept of, being scared in order to take an exam, especially with the AWS certification thing going on, stop you from that aspect. It's being resilient and perseverance, which leads to the final. This is from Angela Duckworth, Grit, and it's Grit Theory. Grit is passion and sustained persistence applied towards a long-term achievement. It combines resilience, ambition, and self-control in pursuit of long-term goals. It's a journey, it's not a race. It's that consistency. And if things don't go well, life happens and you have to take 3 months off doing something, is getting back up and having the courage to do that and to continue, which is really important from that aspect. The final bit I just want to point out is the fact that 120 minutes, 4 hours, in the case of different exams I've taken, it will never define what you do and what you do not know. Okay, a lot of these certifications, especially the vendor ones, as opposed to the more cloud agnostic ones, which are for inside CompTIA or the BCS training, they're about their products and services, and sometimes it's the breadth. And you may only work in one portion, but for that exam, you got to live in exam world. You cannot apply any other knowledge that you have gained through years and exposure into the exam. It's like in ISACA, you live in ISACA world, or you live in the world of AWS. Nothing else. You want their answer to that question. So if things don't go right, it's not about you. It's just about the breadth. And sometimes it's just about being mentally prepared. You can have bad days. I got stuck in traffic once and I had a bad exam. I scraped a pass. And that was because I was annoyed on the way there. So don't ever be afraid to get back up, because sometimes when things like that happen, you learn a lot more from that experience and knowledge. I think continuous learning and things like that is really important. We live in an age and a world where technology is constantly evolving, shifting, and changing. You have a look at your AWS updates. Things change so fast and so frequently that whether you choose just to keep updated through different methods, or you look towards going through that cloud certification route to find out what's going on, it's just really important to stay current and stay on top of it. Hopefully this talk and the tips, the terrible stories and all that bits and pieces has provided some form of entertainment. If you're looking towards any cloud certifications or anything like that, feel free to give me a shout. Is there any questions?